It's the Better Business Bureau, and we serve 12 parishes in South Central Louisiana. We provide services to the public as well as services to the business community. Most people in the public think of the Better Business Bureau when they need to check on the reputation of a business before they do business with them, or if they have had a problem with the company in our service area, it's an opportunity for them to file a complaint and try to get their dispute resolved through our mediation or arbitration processes. Today is one of our business events. It's a networking opportunity for our accredited businesses to get together and trade business cards and possibly develop new client relationships, as well as learn what's going on in the state. We have speakers at each of our programs to kind of bring them up to date what's going on. Today is the treasurer going to bring us up to date on what's going on within the state of Louisiana.
I want to talk for a couple of minutes and then take questions about anything I talk about or you want to talk about a formula for a better Louisiana. And it's really, in my judgment, pretty simple. We need real, decent jobs for adults, and we need a better education for our kids. And you can't have one without the other. Let me talk about jobs first. I want to thank you all for the jobs you create for our state. If you show me a successful business, you're also showing me a courageous decision that was made at one time by a businesswoman or a businessman to take a risk. And nobody was going to be there to pick them up if that risk had failed. But that's how we create jobs in this country. And that's how we have to create jobs in Louisiana. Certainly it's important that we recruit companies from out of state to come to Louisiana. And I think Stephen Morey, our Secretary of the Department of Economic Development, does a great job doing that. But we also need to do more of something else. We need to help small business women and small businessmen that are already here. Because the truth of the matter is that about 95% of the jobs that we will create every year are created by small business people that are already in Louisiana. And they're invested in our state. Now, they're not going to, creating these jobs doesn't create headlines. Generally, the circumstances are not conducive to a politician going and cutting a big ribbon and announcing a $300 million plant. We'll create 2 jobs over here, 4 jobs over here, 10 jobs over here, 20 jobs over here, but they add up, and they stay in Louisiana. When the subsidies are gone, those jobs don't leave with the subsidies. And we don't do nearly enough to help the small businesses already here, in my opinion. Different small businesses have different needs. Sometimes they just need help with regulations, get a little government off their back. I remember a time in America where if you wanted to start a landscaping business, all you needed was a lawnmower. Today, you need a lawnmower, you need a lawyer, you need a CPA, you need a benefits manager to tell you about the Affordable Care Act, you need a compliance officer to comply with all the local, state, and federal rules and regulations. I don't know when you're going to have time to cut the grass. Other of our small businesses need capital. Money is tight. Credit standards have risen, particularly since the Great Recession of 2008. You know, we don't do nearly enough to make that capital accessible to small businesses. I was reading the other day about something that Kansas is trying, and it's working. Kansas established a new tax law to help small businesses. The new law says non-wage pass-through income for small businesses will no longer be taxed. And let me explain what I mean by that. If you're a small business, usually you're incorporated as an LLC. You might be a regular corporation, but most are subchapter S corporations, where the profits of the corporation aren't taxed. They just flow right through and are taxed by the owner. You might be a partnership. You might even be a sole proprietorship. In Kansas, It would work like this. Let's suppose that you're a small business, you're an LLC, your gross income that year from your product or services is $400,000. You had $200,000 worth of expenses, so you had $200,000 worth of profit. Generally, a small business owner will pay himself a salary. Let's say it's $50,000. That would continue to be taxed. But that leaves $150,000 worth of profit under current law that is also taxed by the owner of the business. Under Kansas law now, if the small business owner in that LLC or sub-S corporation or sole proprietorship keeps that $150,000 and invests it in his business or her business, it's not taxed. It's not taxed. And the small businesses in Kansas are growing by leaps and bounds. It's something Louisiana needs to consider very seriously. But more than anything else, it's an attitude. It's an understanding, it's an appreciation by the people in government that the small businesses of Louisiana, the men and women who took a chance, who took a risk, who put a second mortgage on their home, who weren't going to have government there to bail them out if they failed. Those are the people creating most of the jobs for our state, and we need to do something to help them do that. Let me talk about the second part of an equation for a better Louisiana, education. And I want to focus, because I want to leave plenty of time for questions, just on one part of education, higher education. You know, we live in a global-based, knowledge-based economy. It used to be that if you had a strong back, that was enough. Now you got to have a strong mind. It used to be that if you could lift a ton, that was enough. Now you got to be able to spell it. Education is important, whether it's vocational technical school, whether it's community college, whether it's our four-year university. And we've got a whole assortment for our kids to choose from in Louisiana. But we tell our kids every day, I've got an 18-year-old right now, he's trying to decide about college. We tell our kids, as we should, finish high school, go further, go to VOTEC school, go to community college, go to LSU, get a four-year degree, go to Southern. Education, education, education. We know it's the formula for better Louisiana. And what has state government done to help them? We have cut higher education over the last 6 years by 67%. In 2008, we were spending $1.6 billion out of our general fund to support our universities. Today, we're spending about $525 million. It's an embarrassment. I do not know how BRCC and LSU and Southern and our other schools are keeping the lights on. Now, some of the hole we filled on the backs of parents and their kids by raising tuition. I'm not a proponent of raising tuition, I can tell you right now. Some of my friends in higher education disagree with me. But here's why. We're not going to get more people into education by raising the price of the product. That's simple economics. And besides that, the cost of tuition in America since 1985 has gone up 500%. That's more than the price of a home. That's more than the price of a gallon of gas. That is more than the cost of health care. Health care is not the most expensive, fastest rising necessity in America. It's tuition. Now, if we didn't have the money, that would be one thing. But we do. The current budget, as some of you have heard me talk about before, is $25 billion. When Governor Blanco was governor, the budget was $19 billion. We were fully funding higher education. When Mike Foster was governor, the budget was $12 billion. We were fully funding higher education. We've gone from a $12 billion budget to a $19 billion budget to a $25 billion budget over a period of time when we haven't added people. We've lost a congressional seat, and inflation's been under 2%. Don't tell me we don't have the money. We have more money today adjusted for population and the consumer price index than at any time since Louisiana became a state in 1812, and that's just a fact. The numbers are the numbers. That's a fact. Now here's what we need to do. We have a bill sponsored by Representative Dee Richard. It's House Bill 142. I hope you will call your legislator and email your legislator and considering coming down to the Capitol and testifying on the bill. Whether you're for it or against it, get involved. If you think you're too smart to be in politics, I understand, but you're destined to be governed by people dumber than you if that's your attitude. Come get involved. This bill is very simple. It would reduce the state's spending on consultants by a very modest 10%, just 10%. They can keep, every department can keep spending what they're spending on consultants by 90%, but we're going to reduce the spending by 10%. That we have so many consultants that will generate $530 million, just a reduction of 10%, $530 million of recurring revenue. And we're going to dedicate that money to higher education. We're going to dedicate it to higher education. Now, some of my colleagues disagree with me on this. They say we need all these consultants. I say they're wrong. Pick the first 50 names in the Baton Rouge phone book and ask them to look at this list, and they'll be able to reduce it by 10% easily. Just to give you an idea, some of you have seen this before, but these are the consulting contracts from 2005 to 2010 for one department of state government, just one. They're $5,499. 615 million taxpayer dollars. This is the Department of Education. And these are not the contracts. This is a listing of contracts. You can see they go on and on and on. We've got consulting. We are paying a consultant to drive around Natchitoches and Rapides parishes right now, fueled by your tax money, to encourage our Hispanic citizens to wear their seatbelts. That's true. We were paying, until I started talking about it, $94,000 to an Oakland, California company to come in and analyze how our kids are playing at recess and lunch periods. I'm not kidding you. You couldn't make this stuff up. We've got consulting contracts with the Smiles and Happiness Foundation, with the Hop To It Music Company, with a group called New Orleans, South Africa. They've got about an $800,000 contract. We had an almost $900,000 consulting contract with a former politician in New Orleans whose job was to encourage people to do business with DOTD. Nice work if you can get it. Now, if this bill passes, the departments can choose, if they wish to eliminate those contracts. That's what they ought to do. But they don't have to eliminate a single one. But they do have to go to their consultants and say, look, if they don't want to eliminate the frivolous ones, and say, look, times are tough in Louisiana. We need to lift up our higher education system. We want you, Mr. or Ms. Consultant, who've made millions of dollars off the taxpayers in Louisiana. We're not saying you did a bad job, but we're saying we need money for our universities. We want you to discount your contract by 10%. They're going to moan, and they're going to groan, and then they're going to do it. In this economy, if you've got a $12 million contract with the Department of Health and Hospitals and you're asked to reduce it by 10%, when there's language in the contract that says the state can get out of it at any time by sending a letter, you're not going to say no. And we'll be able to fully fund, no, strike that. We'll be able to fill some of the hole that we have dug for our universities. Let's suppose I'm half wrong, folks. That's still $250 million. And it will work. It will work. Now, this sounds simple. It won't be. If you've got a special interest group, and I don't use that in a pejorative sense, because many of our consultants do add value, but all of them don't. But if you've got a special interest group that's bringing down over $5 billion, and you go to them and say, we're going to take away 10%, they're going to fight back. And they will be fighting this bill. But we will win if I can get the people to support it. What am I doing on time? Let me end on this note. I know what some of you are thinking because I've heard it before. You're too polite to say it, but I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Kennedy, we hear what you're saying. We agree with you. But you're never going to get the governor to go along. You'll never get the legislature to go along. You'll never get the bureaucracy in Baton Rouge to go along. I understand that. But my response is this. Just for a second, imagine that there's one among you who agree with me. And tomorrow, we add one more. And the day after that, we double those two. Now we've got 4. We've got 4 people who say, Kennedy, we can do this. We can fix this state. And the next day we double that, and the next day we double that. In 21 days, we'll have 1 million people. In 21 days, we'll have Louisiana, because that's where it starts. Margaret Mead said it best. She said, never ever doubt that a small group of committed people can change this world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Thank you again for having me. We're talking about higher education. We're talking about helping higher education. We have a bill sponsored by Representative D. Richard. It's House Bill 142 that will try to restore some of the funding, the money that we've cut from our colleges and universities by reducing the number of state consulting contracts and our spending by 10%, a very modest 10%. We've got so many contracts that would generate about over $500 million a year, about $530 million a year, and we will dedicate that money to our universities. What we've done to our universities is a disgrace. Since 2008, their general fund funding has gone from $1.6 billion to about $525 million. They've filled some of the hole by raising the tuition on the backs of parents and students, which I'm against. Tuition in America has gone up 500% since 1985, more than the cost of gas, more than the cost of a home, more than the cost of health care. We don't need to raise tuition. We just need to spend our money differently. This bill will work. I'm hoping if folks agree with me, they'll talk to their legislators and encourage them to help our universities. Look, if we didn't have the money, that would be one thing. But our budget this year and next year is going to be $25 billion. Under Governor Blanco, it was $19 billion. Under Governor Foster, it was $12 billion. We've gone from $12 billion and $19 billion to $25 billion over a period of time when we've actually lost a congressional seat because of our population, and inflation has been under 2%. We've got enough money. We're just not spending it in the right place. You know, families every day set priorities. Businesses every day set priorities in their spending. If I've got a family budget, if my son needs braces, you know, I've got to find the money for it. I'm probably not going to go to take my family to Disney World that summer. I might go to Grand Isle instead, but I'm going to move money around for a higher priority expenditure, my son's health care. That's what government ought to do. We say higher education is a priority, but yet we don't spend our money like that. This bill will help us fill back some of the hole.
What is the status of the bill in the legislature? What's it going to take to navigate it through?
The bill has been introduced. It'll be heard next week in the House Appropriations Committee. If we come out of appropriations, and we have before, and it passes the House, and we have before, we'll go to the Senate Finance Committee. That's generally where we bog down. But I'm talking to the members of the committee and to the administration, and I'm hoping this year we can get it out of the Senate Finance Committee. I think if we can, the bill will pass. And if we pass this bill beginning July 1, our universities won't have adequate funding, but they'll have a lot more funding. Now, there is a bill in the legislature I'm supporting called the WISE bill to give our universities an extra $40 million for workforce training, but that's just a drop in the bucket, and every university won't share in that money. Our bill will generate over $500 million, and it'll work.
If people have questions like more information, what should they do?
They can come to my website at latreasury.com. That's www.latreasury.com, and read about the bill, and while you're there, check for unclaimed property.
What businesses are members of the Better Business Bureau?
We currently have approximately 1,350 businesses in the 12 parishes that are accredited by the BBB, which means they have met all 12 standards that we require members to be before we invite them to become accredited.
As a membership organization, what is the value of membership in the Better Business Bureau?
Well, it helps particularly if you're doing business in the local community. The fact that when you show your accreditation sign, it tells your customers that you are pre-committed to ethical business practices required to become accredited by the Bureau and maintain that accreditation. That means that you have properly licensed all your businesses that you need required in the community, and that you have agreed to resolve any customer disputes that may arise between the transactions with you and the consumers in our area.
If people have questions or like more information, what should they do?
They could contact the Better Business Bureau at www.batonrouge.bbb.org or call our offices at 346-5222.